down the bases, follow my lead. Don't need no keys, you got the combination. I feel your energy, the vibration. One of a kind, matching my vibe. It's beautiful in and outside. I love your honesty and all your patience. You watching me like...
Hi, it's Justin Coletti of SonicScoop, and thanks for joining me for some more MixCon. Today we have on a multi-time Grammy-winning, multi-platinum producer, engineer, mixer by the name of Preston Prizzie Reid. Prizzie is an absolute master of his craft, and I can't wait for you to hear him go under the hood of a mix with us. He has an incredible number of credits in the world of hip-hop, R&B, and pop music production. He's worked with artists like Usher, Kanye West, 21 Savage, Lil Uzi Vert, Alicia Keys, Summer Walker, John Legend, and so many more. He's going to be cracking open a mix for us today and showing us his entire process from start to finish. And right after the conclusion of this live premiere, we're going to be doing a Q&A with him where you get to ask him your own questions in real time. So if you're here for the live premiere and any questions pop into your head as it's going along, just enter them right into the chat box here on screen and we will save the best ones to ask him during that Q&A right after this. Like all the MixCon Masterclasses, this one is free to the public thanks to our sponsors. And the sponsor on this one is a super natural fit. It is Waves. They're one of the premier makers of pro audio plugins going back as long as I've been in audio or longer. They make some of the most used and best loved plugins in music production and mixing history. And they keep on coming out with innovative, forward-looking plugins to this day. You got to check them out over at waves.com. Prizzie has been using Waves plugins in his mixes since the beginning of his career, and there's a ton of Waves plugins in this mix, including Renaissance Compressor, Renaissance Vox, Renaissance De-esser, and Renaissance EQ, the MV2 compressor, the H-delay, other classics like TrueVerb, Doubler, their stereo spreader and stereo imaging tools, and more recent tools like Smack Attack and Clarity VX. In the live Q&A after this, we'll talk to Prizzie even more about his favorite plugins to use on what sources and why. And you'll see a whole bunch of these and others in action in the mix. In addition, Waves and the other MixCon sponsors are giving away more than $10,000 worth of free gear with multiple chances to win in the MixCon Mega Giveaway. So go over to mix-con.com, that's mix-con.com, where you can sign up for your chance to win and RSVP for more upcoming masterclasses and workshops like this one. All right, big thanks to the artists for letting us go under the hood of their track. Big thanks to Waves for helping make this one free to the public. And big thanks to Prizzie for letting us take a closer look at his process and hear more about his philosophy when it comes to the mix. Without any further ado, let's get right into it. Prizzie, take it away.
Yo, what's up, guys? This is Preston Prizzie Reid, and I am a mixing engineer here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm going to break down an R&B song and just my overall R&B mixing philosophy for SonicScoop. Shout out Justin over at SonicScoop. I want to give a big shout out to my guys over at Waves, everybody over there. And you'll see that I used a handful of their plugins in this mixing session and in most of my sessions. So let's get into it. So today I'm going to break down a song. It's an R&B record, but it's a very kind of simple, straightforward record. The artist is Jade Nova, and the song is called 90s Fine. So first and foremost, I want to talk about the overall philosophy of how I work. I'm a very kind of less is more type of person. And it took a while to get to this point. I was one of those guys who had nothing but new gear and, you know, the top of the line, whatever, converters, summing, all that stuff. And right around, honestly, the beginning of COVID is when I started to just second guess, like, why am I using all this stuff? When if you get a record that is good and is recorded well or put together well, you realize that you got a decision to make. You know, you're either serving your ego or you're serving the song. I kind of just got to a point where I wanted to super serve the song that was in front of me. And being in the box, that's what gave me the biggest advantage. And I think, you know, in a way, you kind of have to go through that gauntlet of trying everything out just to realize that it's really about the song and your ear and your taste. That's how I chose to work. And it's been working out for me for some years now. And that's why I want to show you guys today that, you know, it can be pretty simple if you approach it with a certain philosophy and a certain lightness to your approach and not get super, super heavy-handed out the gate. All right, so lastly, before we jump into the session, I wanted to talk about client expectation. When you're mixing songs every day, and that's your thing, I think a big part of being a mixer is knowing what is expected. And every client is different. Some clients, they'll say, oh, do your thing. And they don't mean that. They're saying that and they're optimistic about it, but sometimes they want exactly what they have. Nowadays, especially since most of us are working with basically the same tools, their rough mix is a heightened version of what they believe the song should sound like. So now it's more about making micro changes and really going in with the fine-tooth comb to enhance or exaggerate what's already there and ultimately add to the feeling. But in this case, they wanted me to do my thing, but it's a very strong foundation of what they already have. And me going in and just bulldozing everything and starting over really wasn't the answer. So I wanted to show you guys that in real time. And I know, later on we'll be answering questions, and I'm happy to discuss that, because that's a big thing of client retention and keeping clients, is knowing exactly what they want. I like to look at it as basically being like a barber or something like that. And some people will come in and they want you to give them an entirely new look. And some people come in and they just want a simple shape up, keep it moving. They want to still look like themselves, just a more refined version. It's very similar with mixing. And especially if you're not in the room with these people when they're making the record, that's when it's very, very, very important to try to understand what they're going for, why they made the decisions they're making. And ultimately, even if it sounds wrong, it's your job to make it feel right, feel more intentional. So that's what we're going to do here today. This song in front of us, this is an example of like, man, just keep it simple. Keep it as simple as possible. Make sure every decision you make is serving the song. And, one of the hardest things to do is know when not to touch something, know what not to do. So we have the template here, and it's pretty straightforward. A lot of what you need to know is just the routing. My master track, this is all pretty much just metering. My print track, which is a conversation to be had, but I still love to print my track because I can listen to it before it's sent to the client. A lot of times I'll hear stuff because I'm passively listening, and I might hear that this little part jumps up in a weird way, and I'll go back and re-edit it and then go back and print it again. Then I have my mix bus, which we'll get into in a second. This track is just a rough mix, which I'll always import what they gave me. I'll always ask for an MP3 or WAV of what they had, which is essentially their demo. I'll try that out just to make sure I'm in line with what they gave me. Also in the prep stage, my guys, Nick and Eric, my two engineers/assistants, they will make sure that everything is in there. Sometimes the tune could be off. Sometimes the effects don't sound the same, or, if we're missing something, we'll always make sure we have that before we even start the mix. So that's what this is for. And I'll always toggle between the two when I'm mixing, just to make sure I'm in line with what they gave me. After that, we have our all drums, our all music, our all vocals, and then our all vocal effects. Now, you could send all the effects to just one big all vocal track, but I like to have the control. So the only thing you'll notice here, which is kind of interesting, is we have what's called a vocal push track, which is just parallel compression that I like to push up at the kind of the last stage of the mix. I think it sounds good, and it helps the vocal kind of sit like right here at attention with the listener. So after that, we'll play the track, and then we'll get into different elements of the song.
I'm surprised, how did I end up like this? Open heart, open minded. Ooh, and I don't wanna waste time on the baseline. Taking off all of my makeup, turning
So yeah, that's the song. That's going up to the second verse, but let's break it down. Let's see what we have here. And a lot of the choices made were because the production is just great. Shout out Devin. He's always good at sending really good stems. I think he uses Logic. So they're pretty good. A lot of it is just balancing level and very slight things because the rough already sounded pretty good. All right, we're jumping into vocals. And typically this will be a lot more involved, but in this case, I got all of the stems from Logic and they sounded good. Devin is a really good engineer. He records all of Jade Nova's stuff and it comes in sounding good. And again, if it ain't broke, I'm not trying to fix it, but I did do some things to enhance it. So I'll show you that right now. Let's play the first verse.
I'm surprised, how did I end up like this? Open heart, open minded. Ooh, and I don't wanna waste time on the baseline.
Cool. So obviously my vocal tracks are in blue. For some reason, that's just how my brain processes things. I've always kind of seen sounds in colors, which sounds kind of crazy, but I've always been that way since I was a kid. And my brain always tells me vocals are blue. So that's what we're gonna do. That is going to my vocal bus A. And let's take all of these off.
I'm surprised, how did I end up like this? Open heart, open minded. Ooh, and I don't wanna waste time on the baselines.
You hear there's a little bit of rustling back there. I think in this song it was fine. Sometimes I might even take this and put it into RX or some type of repair tool and get rid of this. Another great option is Waves Clarity, if I could spell it today, Clarity VX Pro, which is another great option, which you can focus on the voice or you can focus on the ambience. Sometimes if there's stuff happening in the background, I like to use this as well and get rid of it just to isolate the vocal so you have a better starting point. Now, let's get into it. First and foremost, de-essing is a thing. Please de-ess, because if you like people, you will like them to have ears to listen to all of your mixes throughout your life. And you don't want to kill them with top end, unless you do, and that's a different conversation. But right now we have the Waves R de-esser.
Ooh, and I don't wanna waste time on it. Ooh, and I don't wanna waste time on it.
So listen to the S in time, or waste time.
No waste time on it. No waste time on it. No waste time on it.
It's a lot softer. You can view de-essers as just a high frequency compressor. I like to look at it as like a pillow. It's kind of softening what's already happening. I'm not necessarily trying to remove the S. I just want it to have a softer landing so it's not just knives hitting you in the face of top end and S's.
I'm surprised.
And then I went in with the Pro Q, did the same type of thing.
I'm surprised, how did I end up like this?
So you'll notice this entire area, there's this big mountain.
I'm surprised, how did I?
So I'm just dynamically EQing that down just for an extra layer of it. To be honest, I was being a little lazy. What we could have just done is take this little football, just drag it down.
How did I end up? How did I?
That's another great way to do it, which honestly should be the best and first way you try it, but it is a little tedious, but it's rewarding if you do it right. Then we have some soothe.
I'm surprised, how did I end up like this? Oh,
very subtle, but if you're listening on headphones, you'll notice it's a little less abrasive.
I'm surprised, how did I end up like this? Oh,
very subtle setting, but, well,
I'm surprised.
Subtle-ish. And it's working. This is just for color.
I'm surprised, how did I end up like this? Open heart.
Simple, but it works.
I'm surprised. How did I end up like?
This is just here as a failsafe, but it's not actually doing anything on this song. Then we have the illustrious RVox.
I'm surprised. How did I end up like this? Open heart, open mind.
So this is compressing, but it's kind of adding a sense of density to the vocal. RVox, I don't know how they did it. I don't even care to ask, but it always just works. It's two knobs pretty much. I mean, you can gate it too, but it's really just two faders, two sliders. And it just, I don't know, it works. It brings the vocal forward. I don't even see it as compression. I see it as some type of limiting thing that's happening, but it works. After that, we have this plugin called Speccraft.
I'm surprised. How did I end?
And this works very simple. If you look at
I'm surprised.
the frequency spectrum,
I'm surprised.
you'll see all these little spikes, and that's just the natural tone of the vocal. Obviously, with compression, it's adding some type of harmonics and kind of changing the signal. But
I'm surprised.
basically, everything that goes over this yellow line gets pushed back down immediately.
I'm surprised. How did I end up like this? Open heart.
So use carefully, but it is super, super, super useful, and I love it. After that,
I'm surprised. How did I end up like this? Open heart, open minded.
this is just a little bit of extra top end. I don't really know what frequencies these are utilizing, but it works. Sometimes that's a good thing, because then I don't have the opportunity to analyze what's happening and be like, oh, is this actually, but I don't know. It works. I turn the knob up, it works, so good enough for me. Okay, let's get into the pre.
Don't need no keys, you got the combination. I feel you. Don't need no keys, you got the combination.
Same thing for the most part, but we're just adding an 1/8 note delay. And then on the outro, let's see what we're doing. Just a throw. Just adding a little bit of space and lushness. So yeah, that's pretty much the leads. Let's just go over the backgrounds real quick. Now, anybody who's been following me in any part of my career knows I love background vocals. It's just a very important part of the song for me.
Give me a love with no filter. Tell me the truth.
We're using a very similar treatment to the leads. We're taking a little bit of the top end off.
Give me a love with no filter.
Taking a little bit of low end off.
Give me a love with no filter. Give me a love with no.
I think this is the exact same setting. Well, almost exact same. Same thing here, just for color. I personally like to saturate my background vocals. In this case, we're using this black box EQ, which is kind of saturating. It's also EQing. It's adding a saturated EQ, I think.
Give me a love with no.
A little bit of sparkle up top.
Give me a love with no.
And you see this weird like little peak thing that's happening. So we just wanted to address that.
Give me a love with no filter.
It's also happening here in the low end, but it was a little less bothersome to me, so we left it.
Give me a love with no filter. Tell me the truth.
And now we're actually spreading the vocal just a bit.
Give me a love with no filter. Tell me the truth with no filler. Give me a love that won't change up. Give me a love with no filter. Tell me the truth with no filler. Give me a love that won't change up.
Simple. Okay, so that is the bulk of the vocals. And let's get into the actual vocal effects. So first, we have a throw here that we did.
Wait.
Let's see if I actually have that printed somewhere. Yep, I do. So
I don't wanna waste time on the baseline. Taking off all
and this is just simple spec craft again. You'll see this little yellow line bouncing up and down. That's the adaptive knob. This is kind of like a dynamic pillow that is hitting pretty much. Then we have Echo Boy. Very simple setting. And then rolling off. And yeah, and we committed that.
wanna waste time on the baseline.
Something similar here too.
Wake up, turning off my phone till we wake up.
Very simple. I try not to go too crazy with throws unless I need to, unless the song just calls for it, or if the performance was just kind of lackluster and you have to create some type of intrigue. Let's get into their printed verbs, which again came from Logic.
How did I end up like?
I'm not exactly sure what he used, but it's kind of a darker verb. I do know that I wanted to saturate it just a bit to make it stand out.
I'm surprised.
And then you'll notice I took off just a little bit of top end because it can get kind of sizzly in certain parts. Same thing here.
One of a kind, matching my vibe is beautiful.
So these are all in uniform. So whatever I'm doing to one, I'm doing to all of them. So it's the same balance, the same blend, just with a different tone and texture. And yeah, let's get into my effects that I put on top of it.
Baseline, taking off all of my makeup, turning off my phone.
I have space, which is vocal space. In this case, it's Seventh Heaven, just a room. Betty Betty Simple. And then after that, plate verb.
Baselines, taking off all of my makeup, turning off my phone till we wake up. I'ma throw it back, baby.
And this is just a lexicon plate. And then just a very simple
Baseline,
utilitarian roll off and shelf just to get rid of some of that stuff. Got rid of that. Let's see, what else do we have?
baselines, taking off all of my makeup.
So I have what's called infinite verb, which is really just true verb, which is one of those if you know type of plugins. And I guess if you're watching this, I guess now you know. It's literally just the millennium verb setting on the old school true verb.
Baselines,
Turn it up.
baselines,
Here it goes on forever, literally. So you just kind of put a little bit of that and it helps the vocal kind of feel like it's in this dreamy space. You got to be really careful with it because if you overdo it, then you really lose clarity because it's just this big layer of, it's almost like a layer of ice that you're adding to the vocal. Now we have with.
baselines, taking off all of my makeup, turning off my phone.
Simple old school doubler. And then
Baselines, taking off all of my makeup.
rolling off a little bit on the Waves REQ4 and then just shelving off some of the top. And I don't want to get rid of it because it's really important that we have some of that clarity. We just don't need all of the clarity.
Baselines, taking off all of my makeup, turning off my phone till we wake up. I'ma throw it back, baby, strip it down to basics.
Super simple. And we have slap.
Baselines, taking off all of my makeup, turning off my phone till we wake up.
Very simple. A lot of people would say slap is useless or boring or whatever. I would probably agree to a degree, but also I would disagree because it works and it helps me. We have the H delay. And that's just adding a slap.
Baselines.
And we're rolling off all the stuff we don't need, which
Baseline.
is honestly most of it. And then we're adding some imaging.
Baselines. Taking off all of my makeup.
Just the hair. And that you can find right here. We're just adding a little bit. That's giving us the sound we want with the slap. And then we're just doing some of the same stuff with the backgrounds, just not quite as much, so it's not as exaggerated. I want to say that is it on this. We can go to our subgroups. So all of the dry vocals are going here. You have some lo-fi, just a little bit, reducing it to 16 bits. Very old school trick, but still very useful. Just adding a little bit of this, a little bit of that to the EQ. This is just for sidechaining. If I decided this song is a little too dense, maybe I'll use this as the sidechain key. And on the music, which I did in this song, I just sidechain it just a bit to create a little pocket for the vocal. You'll see that this says Lavery. This is, when I used to have a Lavery, I sold it actually, but I had it here just so I can demo if I liked it in the box or out the box. 99 times out of 100, I liked it in the box just because, one, I have more flexibility. Two, if I ever have to travel, I can just open the session up and it's the same thing that I just heard. And three, because I don't think the client cares quite as much in a lot of cases. So I don't know, we might go back and try out different pieces of gear moving forward, but for now, and especially at this time, I was 100% in the box and I was loving it. So lastly, from a vocal standpoint, all of my effects are going here. So this is important for me because this gives me overall global control over all of the swimmy side stereo stuff. And sometimes if I want to change the overall balance, I could turn that down, turn the effects down, turn the vocals up, or do the opposite. I can manipulate it on different parts of the song. So maybe on the hook, I might lift the vocal effects up or vice versa. You can really do a lot more, in my opinion, when you have it like this. Also, I can treat the overall dry versus the wet part of the vocal. So in this case, I like to use Inflator. I've been using this for 10 years at least, and it just works.
I don't wanna waste time on the bass lines.
It just wakes up the effects for some odd reason. It just works. I know I'm adding a little bit of level, but even when I level match it, it just works. In this song, I'm doing something I don't normally do.
Ooh, and I don't wanna waste time on the bass line.
But I wanted this song to be really kind of lo-fi and very chill sounding, so I ended up rolling off all of the top end. Or not all, but a good bit of the top end. And then some of the low end just to clean up some of the, unnecessary stuff. And then you put it all together and we have.
Ooh, and I don't wanna waste time on the bass lines. Taking off all of my makeup. Turning off my phone till we wake up.
Okay, let's play the kick. Very simple, but it had a little bit of extra, in the low end, a little bit of something that I didn't like, so I wanted to roll that off a little bit. And just shelve that very, very low frequency. And then I'm using the wave smack attack, which is just adding a little bit of snap to it. Again, this song was so simple, we didn't want to make it overly exaggerated. Of course, we all have, the big tools to get everything done, but in this song, it just didn't really need it.
Don't need no keys, you got the combination. I feel your energy, the vibration.
Very subtle, but very useful. Next, we have, that's how I like to label my drums. I like to have them in orange, or for my snares and things like that. My kicks I like to have in red. Let's play it. Very subtle stuff, and this is just to make room for the vocal. And then just this 4K area, which you should always be careful about, because when you turn it way up, this is the stuff that kind of becomes piercing and hurts. Other parts of the frequency spectrum too, but really the 4K area is a place where you want to really pay attention to. Same thing with this drum loop. Now you'll notice I have a lot of this parallel stuff here when I need it. In this case, I didn't need it, but if I wanted to, very subtle. Again, the song didn't need it, but sometimes, you know, when in Rome, that's what we have. That's what we use. So now let's get into our hats, which again, very simple stuff in this song, but it's important to pay attention to these small details. In this case, we're rolling off 30 hertz on all of them because this stuff can build up. Even though you may not see it on a frequency spectrum, you may not even really hear it on headphones, but it's eating away headroom in the very, very low frequencies, which is really important when you start to turn the volume up. And especially once it starts to hit that limiter, when you're having all that energy built up in the low end, you're really limiting how loud you can get the song. So this is unnecessary space, in my opinion, and especially in the hats. Sometimes even in the snares, in this case, because it's a drum loop, I didn't really want to remove that. But in some cases, that's what you need to do to get it to where you need it to be. So let's play that real quick. Again, very, very simple stuff. It's all about just the balance and making sure it's all right. And then lastly, all of this is going into a hats group so we can have global control over it. And you'll see all of this same parallel stuff if I need it. It's all going to the same thing. I'll show that to you in just a second.
Don't need no keys, you got the combination. I feel your energy, the vibration.
So you'll notice it actually gives you a little bit of less of the hats and stuff like that. And that's to make room for the vocal. In R&B, and honestly, I would say basically any genre, the focus is always the vocal. So anything that's getting in the way of that, it needs to go, or it needs to be turned down or tamed or compressed, or there's a million things you can do, but the vocal is always the focus. So these little EQ moves made it possible so the vocal could shine.
Don't need no keys, you got the combination. I feel your energy, the vibration. One of a kind, matching my vibe.
Okay, cool. So let's get into the bass. This purple track is a bass guitar, and it is clearly a live played bass guitar. Now, sometimes if there's something that's unruly, like a live guitar or really live anything, I basically just treat it like a vocal. I'll go in note by note and sometimes drag some stuff down, draw some stuff down, things like that. It just depends on the song. This song, clearly it was done pretty well. It also seems like it was probably compressed already before I got it to a degree. So it's not bothering me. I think it should stay like this in the song. So yeah, let's just get into the treatment. This, actually my assistant Nick put this on. I know he likes to use this quite a bit. And I believe what this is giving is, let's see. So this is giving just a little bit of attack punch, and then it's also tightening up the stereo image, which is already basically mono, but this just puts it at attention even more. So it's a nice addition to it. After that, I have Orange Clip, which shout out Ryan Schwab. This is around the time it first came out, and it just works, man. Like, basically when those peaks go over this little threshold right here, it's just shaving off the peaks at the top. And instead of compression, I didn't necessarily want to change anything timing-wise with the bass because it's already jamming and it's groovy and it's in a pocket. So I just wanted to shave off the very top so it's not as peaky. And also, again, going into the limiter at the end, I wanted to make sure I'm getting a very solid and pure signal. So shaving just a bit at the top, that's what did it for this song. Moving on. We have the Rhodes. Which is just fire. I mean, it didn't really need anything, in my opinion. But we have a channel strip on here, which is the metric halo, and we're just rolling off some low end. And then we're just compressing just a bit. Another thing that I want to really harp on is try not to get into the game of fooling yourself with volume. Sometimes plugins will have an unnecessary volume jump when you open it, and it can give you the impression that it's bigger sounding than what it was. And sometimes, especially for a younger engineer who's just starting, you can get into some trouble like that because you end up changing the integrity of the mix. R&B is all about the feel. It's all about kind of the dance between different instruments. So this has to fit like this with the next sound. Could be the drum and bass, could be the bass and melody, could be the melody and the vocal, could be the hi-hats and the vocal. Everything creates this overall feeling that you're going for. So when you start throwing plugins on it, sometimes, especially compressors and stuff like that, it can give you the impression that the song, that this one element you threw it on sounds bigger. And it's not really true. It's just, it's not level matched. So what I like to do, especially with plugins that do have a tendency to do that, I'll make my own presets to where that's my new starting point, to where it's the exact same level of what I'm getting. So anything I change or any compression I do or EQ I add, I know it's either better for the song or it's worse and I can try something else. But getting into the game of not compensating for volume can get you in a lot of trouble as a mixer. And especially when everybody is really tied to their roughs, you got to be really specific about what you decide to change. Moving right along, we have the pad, which is playing right along with the Rhodes. They're kind of working in tandem. Just about the same thing. I'm rolling off a little bit. You see this like little mountain? That was getting a little bit much for me, so I took a little bit of that off. And again, well, this is probably 1K, but typically around 2 to 4K, sometimes it's a build-up, and I just wanted to remove that because that was a bit much. So yeah, we're doing that. If I had to guess, I haven't opened this session in a while. If I had to guess, I'm doing something very similar with these as well. Yep, same thing, just a little bit of compression. Another trick you can do, which I didn't do it in this song, maybe I was trying to speed through it, but if you look at the tempo of the song, it's 145. What I like to do, let's see, the attack is 16. What you could do is set this to 13, which is essentially in time with the song. 160 is what it's on. Let's find the closest thing to that. Let's just say 103, I guess. Now, the compression is adding to the groove. It's pumping in rhythm with the song, and that cumulative effect can really make the compression feel more alive. Now, I don't always do this, I'll be honest, but sometimes when I do think about it, it really works in my favor, especially something that needs a lot of compression. I don't really love reaching for a compressor first. It's just not my first order of business. I think most things, A, are programmed, so they're already compressed, or B, by the time I get them, whoever worked on it already compressed the hell out of it. So a lot of times I'm uncompressing. I'm more so looking for colors and saturators and EQ moves and things like that, and just overall general balance things that can get it to sound the same but feel a lot better. So that's just my, again, personal philosophy on things. But yeah, let's move on. This has nothing on it at all. But it does sound fire. This, let's see. This is some 90s guitar strum thing that's happening. It sounds cool. I didn't mess with it on a filtering or EQ level, but what I did do is I wanted to feature it. So I have this send here that is kind of like, I look at it as like a feature knob or a feature send. It's really just a Waves MV2, which I'll go to it right now. And it might even be this exact setting. Let's double check. Just about. And what that's doing is bringing up the low level compression. So the lowest part of the signal is doing this, and the highest part of the signal is doing this. So it's clamping it in a certain way that's basically pushing the sound really close to you. And then I'm just rolling off a little bit of the low end because it got a little heavy. But certain sounds in the beat, if I wanted to bring them up, instead of just turning up the volume, which I also did that too, sometimes this can work as well to keep a constant level that's just doing this the whole time. So yeah, let's hear it with and without. And again, you'll see that all throughout most of my sessions. And it just helps. Super simple, but it works, and I do it a lot, and I love it, and I'm not getting rid of it, probably ever. Lastly, we have our mix bus, which in this case, very simple. Again, like I really, really try not to load the whole mix bus with just plugin after plugin after plugin after plugin. I used to do that, and I used to think that it was making it better. Every plugin was naturally adding to the vibe. But once the song will be mastered and the song will come out, I'd be like, man, why does the song sound smaller? Why does the song sound like, and other stuff sounds like breathing and dynamic? And over time, it just became painfully obvious that you're doing too much to try to make up for level of a song that's already out. Maybe you're referencing something that's already mastered, or you're trying to get it to the same level, so you end up doing a lot of things to try to get it to that level on the mix bus. And realistically, if you did want to go that route and get something really loud out the gate, which I can definitely do, it's better to do it on a track-by-track basis, or just do it earlier in the chain so that downstream it helps you out, instead of trying to do it at the very last stage to try to create loudness. So in this song, this is a prime example of that. I'm not getting a ton of level. This song is loud enough, but it's not the loudest thing in the market. It's very laid back, and that's the point. You don't want it to be too energetic sounding, when the whole point is for it to be chill, kind of, you know, you vibe to it, you play it at night, you play it with your significant other, and something like that. You know, that's the vibe of the song. I have this trim plugin. All that's doing is lifting the hook. You see it's boosted at it's just boosting the hooks a dB. Very simple. Every song doesn't need it, but this song definitely needed it, in my opinion. And I'm adding a little more color with the pull tech, of course. Then I'm using this Brainworks EQ just to get rid of some of the lower, get rid of that. Then we have a God particle, which I don't always use, but when I do, it works really well. It's a multi-band, kind of an all-in-one type of thing. You know, think Ozone, just in his own Jason way. It works. And in this song, it worked really well. And that's not firing at 100% per se, but it is doing a lot.
Gotta try some natural. This could be. Give me a love, no filter. Tell me.
You'll notice I'm getting a lot of level. I think it defaults at plus 5 dB. I added another dB on top of that. So we're getting the bulk of our level from this plugin. After that, we have the Oxford limiter, which is giving us almost no level.
Gotta try some natural. This could be. Give me a love, no filter.
But it does add something nice that I really like, and it adds a certain color and texture and, dare I say, je ne sais quoi to the song that I really like. And then lastly, we have Old Faithful.
Gotta try some natural. This could be. Give me a love, no filter. Tell me the truth, no fear. Give me a love that won't change up.
And that's the Ozone 9 Maximizer on transient mode. And it just always did something really dope in my opinion. All of them sound pretty similar. They sound kind of different, but close enough. This kind of goes to the point of sometimes when you're mixing, familiarity really does matter. You can try the latest and greatest stuff, and you should try it, but there's something special about knowing the tools that you use and knowing your tools. And I don't know if you can necessarily create a sound if you're always demoing new stuff and trying new stuff and swapping this out with this just because it's the newest thing. Sometimes there's going to be plugins that just stick with you. And this is one of them. I don't use it all the time, but I know exactly what it's going to give me. And to me, that's really important because that helps with your speed, efficiency. You know when to put it somewhere in the chain and you know why you put it there. You can get kind of repeatable results when you use tools like that. I think Waves does a good job of that, and there's a lot of other companies that can give you a very predictable result. And in a world of a million variables, you're getting sessions from this part of the world, this part of the world, this genre, that genre. Everything's different. And when you're mixing every day, you want to remove those variables. You want to have some sense of familiarity, which, you know, your room, your template, your approach, you find comfort in that. And that's what helps you deliver something pretty quickly to the client that you can really build off of. Going back to the philosophy, I think it's important to know who you're working with. And I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of great producers, one being Tricky Stewart, as a lot of people know. And I learned a lot because most of my mixing philosophy came from working directly with my clients. I didn't learn under another mixer. So keeping it simple is necessary. If you start adding too much or trying to add a million EQs and paralleling the parallel, and you lose the plot. You end up losing the song. And that's the worst thing you can do. One thing that I used to really kind of focus on is recognizing where are you when you get the record. If you're on a football field, are you first and goal? Are you at the 20-yard line, the 40-yard line? What do you need to do to get it over the hump? And when you're working with really, really, really talented producers or writers or engineers, your job might just be run the ball down the middle and score. It might not be throw a Hail Mary. Some songs you honestly do have to throw a Hail Mary to get it to where it needs to be. But it's up to you to identify that early, because if you don't, you might be calling the wrong play. And that, to me, is everything. With this song, I don't think it needed much. They're very intentional. I think we're in the age of intentionality, pretty much. Everybody has the same tools. They can throw Valhalla on a reverb. They can throw CLA vocals on their vocal. They can throw anything on anything. There's not a lot for the imagination in the producer's mind or in the writers or artists or whoever was in the room. So by the time you get the song, you really got to put yourself in their shoes and understand where they were when they made the song. Also, you have to really think about, where is the song going to be played? If it's a dance record, you got to focus on the drums. You got to focus on the low end. You got to focus on, this is going to be played at a really big club or festival or something like that. So this is the part that you really have to focus on. a song like this is probably going to be played in more of like a lounge, or it's a personal type of listen. So you want everything to sound intimate and chill and very laid back so the listener can get what they're trying to get from the song. All right, guys, this was kind of fun. And this is Preston Reid. Some call me Prizzie. I hope you learned a good bit. For anybody who didn't learn what they wanted to learn, please hit me, DM me, whatever, we can talk about it. I want to shout out SonicScoop, Justin. I want to shout out Waves. I want to shout out everybody who checked this out, everybody who helped me along the way. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
All right, I hope you enjoyed that MixCon Masterclass as much as I did. I think Prizzie Reid did an awesome job, and I think it's pretty clear he knows how to get great sounds. Big thanks to the artists for letting us go under the hood of their track. Also, big thanks to Waves for helping make this one free to the public. We saw him use a whole bunch of their tools in this mix. Renaissance Vox, Renaissance De-esser, and Renaissance EQ. The MV2 compressor, the H delay, TrueVerb, Doubler, their stereo spreader and stereo imaging tools, Smack Attack, and Clarity VX. Remember, we have a live Q&A coming up right after this where we can ask Prizzie questions directly about his process, approach to mixing, favorite plugins, favorite ways to process, what's really important in the mix, and so much more. While you're waiting for that to get started, go over to mix-con.com. That's mix-con.com, where you can sign up for one of 3 chances to win more than $10,000 worth of free gear in the MixCon Mega Giveaway, thanks to Waves and the other MixCon sponsors. You'll also be able to RSVP for more great presentations like this one. Make sure you don't miss any more MixCon. Last but not least, remember to hit like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, all that good stuff to not miss any more. And we are about to go right into the live interview and Q&A with Prizzie. I hope to see you there.